My name is Myron Randall, and it is my privilege and my pleasure to welcome you to Mercer University's Professional Development Series. I am joined by some of my dear colleagues and friends who will be our guests on this wonderful afternoon. Our interim dean, Dr. Julie Petherbridge. I'll allow her to introduce herself and then also allow her to introduce our associate dean. So Dean Petherbridge, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yes, thank you, Myron, for doing this today. I'm Julie Petherbridge. I actually have been with Mercer for about 13 years, but I actually am wearing a different hat today. I'm also a CPA, and I've been practicing since the early 90s. And so especially a lot of the different items I'm going to talk about today is more on that tax side and the implications for you, more so than in my dean role at the School of Business. But let me pass it off to Dr. Subrahmanyam so she can speak about herself.
Hey, good morning, everyone. And thanks, Julie, and thanks, Myron, for doing this. So I'm also a professor at Mercer University, and I've been with Mercer now for 16 years. And I'm a professor of finance, so kind of a close cousin to accounting with Julie. And she and I have actually worked together many times for helping out small businesses with many of the financial sides and accounting side of business. And so this is very close to our heart. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk about this. So here we are.
So wonderful. Thank you again for sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us today. Just one quick housekeeping note, folks, if you have any questions, we welcome those questions. There is a question and answer button right at the bottom of your screen. If you have a question anytime during this presentation, feel free to click that button and type in your question. We have muted all of our guests just so that we can flow through this presentation smoothly, but we want your questions. We like your questions. Feel free to ask those. Let's go ahead and start right into this. And I'm going to start with you, Dr. V. This is unprecedented, what's going on in the world today. The economy is essentially shut down because of this pandemic. Can you tell us what has been the effect on the economy because of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Absolutely. So firstly, I wanted to tell everyone that we wanted to thank all the different frontline folks on the healthcare side and every other piece of small businesses and individuals who are struggling and trying to keep up. And so just wanted to say that the stimulus package is part of the help on the way kind of thing. So actually it's called the CARES Act because it is a response to this pandemic that we're dealing with. And importantly, the CARES Act is an acronym which really focuses on the idea of aid, relief, and economic security. So as we go through the presentation, we'll focus on those three pieces completely because that's really the components of the CARES Act. So at this point, Congress has given us a $2 trillion package, and they're still talking about maybe having to increase some pieces of it as we speak. So that's really what the CARES Act stands for, and we are hoping that this will, stabilize the economy a little.
Wow. Now, why was this necessary? So I know folks are shutting down, and what really spurred Congress on to do this $2 trillion stimulus?
So the reason for this is, as you guys have probably been listening to the news, you saw that a lot of the discussions have been on people losing jobs or businesses trying to stay afloat. So in that process, just to give you some rough ideas, the latest we've heard is about 6.6 million people have filed for unemployment, and they're expecting numbers from anywhere from 15% to 30%. I've heard it all on the second quarter in terms of drop in GDP, and a lot of businesses are struggling to keep their workers employed. And so because of all of this, the leadership of the country decided that maybe it's time for us to get some help so that all of us can survive. So we are, that's part of the reason for this package.
That makes sense. Now, I guess the next question I have is, I was always told that everybody is interested in what's in it for them. So how does the CARES Act affect individuals on an individual basis? How is this stimulus package going to affect me?
And so what I actually enjoy about this is today is the tax deadline day. So it's my first time in 26 years that I don't have to file a bunch of extensions for people or cramming in. It's funny, my text message has been off the hook this morning going, do I need to extend my return? Those on this call, no, you do not need to extend your return. They moved the deadline to July 15th, but it's so strange because so much of this is connected to our tax return as an individual. And so that's where, you know, many times as a CPA and that I prepare taxes and different things like that, they always connect that the CPA must know everything about it because if it's on the tax return, we should know. And so what I do want to kind of add to you is if you filed your tax return in the past and you've done the direct deposit or you've done the, you know, automatic withdrawal if you owed, that bank information the IRS already has. So they're using that right now to give you your stimulus check. Now, there's several caveats to that, meaning if you haven't filed your 2019 return, we just talked about extensions. And so what it means is they're going to go off your 2018 return. But if you haven't filed your 2018 return, notice that you actually can get it on your 2020 return and they'll reconcile it. But they've also just launched this week, and we'll share the actual website at the end of this presentation, that on the IRS site now, they have it where you can actually log in and key that bank information in if you want that stimulus check to be drafted right into your bank account, which is what they're really pushing for everyone to do because they're trying to make it be as quick as possible, where everyone knows if you're going to issue checks, it's going to take some time. And so the other thing I like to say is some of you are like, oh, my 2018 tax return, I'll qualify for more money than if I do the 2019. So I'm going to hold off on that. They're not that good. We're going to reconcile all this when we do our 2020 tax return. So filing your 2019, I would just get it filed when you're ready to get it filed. Hopefully many of you have already done it, but that's kind of the things I wanted to kind of share with you is many people are like, what about me? And now I will say the other piece that I wanted to add is where is the cutoff? So keep in mind, what is my adjusted gross income? How much am I going to get? That cutoff for individuals is $75,000. For married couples, it's $150,000. And then if you're above that, it will be reduced all the way as it goes up to almost $200,000. So it varies. You need to look that up. And again, we're going to provide you that site. You can click on it in 2 seconds and get all those answers for you individually. And that kind of gives you that idea for the tax return.
So just to be clear, I don't have to fill out anything additional beside my tax return to qualify for this stimulus check.
Correct. You do nothing at all. If you already have that bank account that's attached to any return you filed, 19 or 18, it's going to automatically be drafted into that bank account. And they actually started it this week, so hopefully you'll see it shortly. And the cool thing that they added is many of you guys have used this before. Where is my refund when I'm doing my tax return? They actually have launched the site to where is my stimulus check? Wow. So you can actually plug your information in, which means your social security number that they're going to use. You'll be able to plug it in and actually know when is that going to be coming to me.
Wow. Now, is there any type of additional assistance for folks that have maybe lost their jobs and can't afford to pay the bills that they currently have?
Yeah, so banks are essentially offering, the federal government has helped out with trying to make sure that banks offer assistance programs so you can extend your repayments if need be. You can probably renegotiate the terms. They're also giving you a little bit of mortgage relief in case you have to extend it and not be able to pay right away. They're giving it to you at least, I believe, till 6 months. All student loans are going to also give you 6 months at least for you not to have to pay if you need that extension. They're suspending any federal student loan payments without any interest till the end of September. So trying to Department of Education, all the banks are all tied to this, and they are aware that you can get extensions in these kind of things at this point.
Wow, so that it really does affect individuals on a pretty substantial basis then.
Yes, and I actually love the idea that, as Julie mentioned earlier, that today, for the first time in history, IRS is going to be the ones dealing with sending out stuff, and we are not having to do any of that. So April 15th is a no tax day for us. So that's
normally we're sending them checks, and now they're sending us checks, huh?
Exactly. Isn't that kind of a fun thing to have?
That is different. I tell you that.
Yeah.
Now, I guess the next question then, so if individuals and families are affected, what about those small business owners? I have a little brother who owns a small business. My sister owns a small business, and their business, my dear friends own small businesses, and their businesses have really been affected. The patronage of that business has been affected because of this shutdown. What's going to happen for them, and what does the federal government set aside to help rebuild their businesses?
So actually, they've done a lot for individuals and for small businesses. There's a huge program where they've allocated a major portion of the CARES Act, which is about $350 billion, has been allocated just to provide with loans and help for small businesses. And they have specifically 4 different types of programs that's going to go through the SBA. So anyone who wants to get help with this can apply to the SBA directly. There's a very, very simple, sba.gov gives you a very simple walkthrough almost in this particular aspect. And so just the PPP stands for what is called the Paycheck Protection Program. And this is essentially loan forgiveness for firms to be able to retain their employees by expanding essentially what is existing SBA 7A program, the 7A loan program. So what they've done is they're trying to encourage and incentivize small businesses to keep their employees on the workforce. And they wanted to make sure that they can keep them at least for 8 weeks on payroll. And they also are helping them out in terms of paying any kind of rent or mortgage payments or utility payments that the small businesses might be struggling with right now. So that's what we call the PPP program. There's also another program called the EIDL program, which stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency Advance. It's a mouthful. But that essentially is for they're providing you with about $10,000 of economic relief for any firms that are experiencing temporary problems in terms of just making, basic utilities and basic stuff that they may have to do for a day-to-day transactional kind of businesses. They have also could be having temporary loss of revenues. And so they're trying to help them with about $10,000 in economic relief for that. The third program that they have is called the SBA Express Bridge Loans. And as it says, this is mainly for those businesses that are already dealing with the SBA. They already have existing loans and a business relationship with SBA. They are allowed to access up to $25,000 in bridge loans to be able to, again, get them through maybe with temporary loss of revenues and things like that. And the fourth program they have right now in place, it's called the SBA Debt Relief Program. And that is mostly to just give them, again, a reprieve from any kind of debt relief that they might need for getting them through this pandemic. They essentially, the SBA will automatically pay the principal interest and the fees of any current SBA programs, 7A, 504, or any kind of microloans up till 6 months. And they've given you other types of disaster loans for regular servicing till about March. They'll be giving you deferrals for those programs as well. Okay? So that's what they are doing for this. Now, they have different ways of getting you through this. And the banks have set up programs for helping the SBA, those banks that work with them.
Now, Dr. V, let me ask this question because all of these seem like loan programs, right? So I've got a friend, he's got a clothing business. It may take him a pretty long while to have to repay all these loans back that he's getting from SBA. Are these all loan programs through SBA?
Largely, they are loan programs for SBA, but I think that they're very relaxed in terms of your repayment programs. They're giving you sufficient and more than enough time to be able to pay back. And the application process is extremely simple and straightforward. And each of on the SBA website, they actually have frequently asked questions under each of these, and each of those will be able to help any questions that any small business might have. And some of these questions are part of that as well.
And to add into that, so I've actually helped a couple clients this week in filling this out. And I will tell you, it can be intimidating when you look at the descriptions of these, but when you actually get to the application and submitting the information, it's really straightforward, basic information, what you would normally apply when you're getting a loan. But what I will tell you is, like the PPP program, it actually is a debt forgiveness. So if you meet those parameters, they actually will forgive that loan so you don't have to pay it all back.
Wow.
And so that part is critical for some of these small businesses. Now the amounts are smaller. So like one that I was walking through, their normal payroll that they have is $60,000 for the year. So they're going to get $12,500. Just to give people an idea of how is it working, what is the amount, and what is actually there. Now, one of the questions I always get is, well, I have this hobby business, so can I go and apply and get the money for that? No, they're doing it like a legitimate business loan. And so they are going to make sure you're a legitimate business that's been functioning for a while. You're going to have to provide some financial statements, some past tax returns to really show what was my payroll. And when I say this is, it's not only your payroll, your W-2 side, but if you're self-employed, there's actually a second section that's dealing with self-employed individuals. And it tells you, what do I need to provide? Because again, that's your payroll, whatever your net is if you're self-employed. So keep that in mind as a small business owner. There's lots of opportunities out there. The biggest one that's the easiest, again, is deferring payments, things like that. And that's what some of these are is, it's much easier to get a deferral of payments than it is to probably get an actual loan. So no, there's different programs you can apply to help you at this time.
Okay. Now, I've got to ask one question as it relates to big business, right? So we know that small business is getting something. We realize that individuals are getting something. What about big business? I'm thinking those folks like Delta Airlines that are based right here in Atlanta. I'm thinking of IHG, the hotel company that is losing funds because nobody's staying in hotels across the world that's based here in Atlanta. How are these folks going to receive some type of benefit from the stimulus?
Well, and you'll see 25% is earmarked to them. And many people will be going, well, big businesses don't need this. The reality is think of the number of employees in those companies, and that's really what they're after. And a lot of this is more earmarked to the hospitality, the travel industry, and those, because they are hit the hardest. There's very little. And I think if you guys would have looked yesterday, Delta Airlines is in dealings with the U.S. government. Is the U.S. government going to get 1% share ownership into Delta? That's kind of, I haven't looked into it yet, but that was one of the hot news this morning. So there are some trade-offs with those big businesses that we're going to be working. So it's very different than when we had the stimulus in 2008. Where in this SMART, it is really geared to those industries that are hard hit right now to be able to help them stay open. Because as Myron, as you just said, hotels are shut down. I mean, I use it. My husband travels, leaves every Monday and flies out and comes back every Friday. He's been grounded for 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. And so, and that's like you said, you can look at it. It's the rental cars, it's the hotels, it's all of these travelers, it has really hit because business as usual doesn't exist these days.
Okay. So just to add a couple things there, importantly, as Julie mentioned, that people are worried about the fact whether big businesses should be getting this money. So a couple of things just to think back for a second, that big businesses have been given loans before and actually have always paid back the government, and in fact more, because they pay interest. So they do actually, they've all paid back even from the 2008 stimulus, and everything has been paid back and we've got interest on it. So we're actually going to be okay on that. And companies have been told that they cannot use that money for, anything like buybacks and things like that that will benefit shareholders. They're supposed to use it mainly for wages and benefits for their employees and to be able to sustain their, basic expenses that they need to manage to stay alive, so to speak. So this is really, and this is both for passengers and for cargo flights. And also they've earmarked a little bit for national security, and companies like Boeing, which deals with a lot of that, will also be getting some funding for the same reasons, and it'll have the same conditions that any other big business will get.
I like two things that you all said there, and I think that really helped me understand this. So when this was being passed, there was a lot of consternation about what big business was going to get. I love the fact that you just said that they'll be barred from doing stock buyback. So it's not going to be something just to benefit the business for the sake of benefiting the business. And then Julie, you said something that was so key. Dean, you said that it's really aimed at helping the employees that are part of that company, right? I've got a dear friend who's a VP at Dell Computers, and she's also a traveler, hasn't been able to travel for the last 4 weeks. So it really affected what she's going to do. She's a salesperson with them, and really affected what her sales numbers are for the year. So I see how that is then going to benefit the big business, and then ultimately make sure that she's taken care of because of this particular COVID-19 shutdown.
And I like the idea of keeping in mind that this is, the CARE stands for the aid and relief. So this is the focus that they have, is aid and relief and economic security. And that's really been how we need to think about it, whether it's big business or small business.
That makes sense. Because if Dell Computers shutters, all those folks are without jobs, which then affects the economy on a much larger way. So it really is a stimulus to aid and really benefit and put the economy back to where it needs to be. So what's going to happen for public sector, right? For schools that are public universities and things of that nature, and health services, how are those folks going to get some type of aid and stimulus from the package?
So clearly we've been hearing, about how much the health workers have done and how much they've sacrificed in putting not only the hours, but also themselves at risk. And so, we need to thank them immensely. But importantly, they also are having a lot of the hospitals and the healthcare, providers are also taking a financial hit in this process by having to move a lot of the monies that have been utilized for other programs and other kind of ailments, and staff and both doctors as well as nurses and everyone else who's helping out, they have had to be moved into to deal with the pandemic because of the rising numbers. And so what they've done is they've actually given them $100 million to $100 billion to fight the COVID itself, but also to help them with trying to, get all the monies that have been moved to be able to relieve them of all of those monies that have been used for, other kind of emergencies. So they are trying to get them back to stability as well. And in addition, they have 20% earmarked for Medicare. There's an increase of 20% in Medicare for treating patients, because a lot of the Medicare patients are also falling in that older category. And so that helps them as well, because they are high-risk patients. And what we have been seeing in the news, in addition, is that there's a lot of shortage, as we have been talking about N95s and ventilators, and we keep hearing about that. And so one of the things that we are looking at is not only for the present, but also for the future, is to say that, anytime we are going to, we've lessons learned from some of these, is to say that let's make sure that we plan ahead of time to create a national stockpile. So hopefully, God forbid, this never happens again. But if it does, we should be more prepared than we were this time. So they've kind of created monies or set monies aside also for all of the hospitals and different healthcare industry sectors to be preparing for medical supplies to be stockpiled for the future, and to give similarly monies for the research and development in this different dealings in this area. So they've expanded a lot of the funding to CDC and Centers for Disease Control and similar kind of NIH and programs like that, to be able to get not only expansive research and development, but also to reach virtual doctors in case we will need that in the future. And of course, we have other programs as well.
So first off, I've got to, and go ahead, Dean.
No, and what you'll actually see is we have actually a breakdown of where that money went on this next slide. Yeah, exactly. And so what you'll actually see is that a lot of this is earmarked specifically of where it's going, and it's really going to benefit everyone, because everyone is going to get access to, you know, things that we were going to need it. When you think of nutritional assistance, you know, there's health centers, CDC, child nutrition. I mean, we've seen this in the media and we're seeing that, but now you kind of see exactly what are they earmarking and where is it going. And that's what I kind of like to be able to look through this and say, what are they actually doing with this? If you think of veterans health care, the amount there, again, you're looking at the population that's using their healthcare system is going to be people that are affected by this virus. So it's interesting to see exactly how they allocated it. And I just wanted to add that in.
Absolutely.
That was perfect. You answered my question with that. So that was wonderful.
Okay.
So who else gets stimulus? So we've talked about individuals, we've talked about big business, we've talked about small business, we've talked about healthcare and public sector, but who else is included? And there it is.
Yes, it's the education system. I mean, when you really look at it, it is this education system. And the one, I mean, again, you guys can look at the detail of it, but what I like to kind of point out is those things that you may not realize. I was talking to some of these schools and, you know, what's going on with all the cafeteria workers? What's going on with the bus drivers? And what's very interesting, especially in a lot of our counties within the Atlanta area, is they are actually doing their bus routes, dropping off food. And so they're still employed, they're still doing their jobs within that, they're just doing it reverse. And I thought that was such an interesting way to think about, you know, when we think about the CARES Act taking care of people, that's just another way of what we're doing through this. And again, you know, even within our university, the CARES Act, there's going to be help in higher ed for those that qualify for a Pell Grant or those that are at that, you know, economic level that need some extra support to be able to continue. And so that's really where this is earmarked. It's not higher ed and they're just going to get checks. It's really specified for the population that's really struggling through this. And that's how they've kind of designed each of these allocations.
And so just to add to that, don't forget that the local and state governments are also struggling with a lot of their employees, as well as them being responsive for all of these different pieces while they are still taking care of all our electric bills and, you know, utility bills and all of those things, and, you know, our car tags and, you know, just things that we take for granted all the time. But these are things that still have to run, and we've not, most of us have not felt the pain at all, because they are actually they may be working from home, but they're still working. And so we have to take care of all of them as well. And so there's been, and obviously they have to also take care of their own local hospitals and local, you know, details as well. And so the local and state governments have also been allocated some monies in the public sector side. So they can also help out in that process.
So this has been really good, and I have learned so much. I want to open now the question button down there at the bottom. So if you are watching us and you've got a question, feel free to go ahead and type that question. Our deans will answer questions in just a few moments. So go ahead and start typing those questions, get those questions ready so that when we move into that period of question and answer, those questions will already be there. One of the last questions that I have, and we talked about this previously, is, you know, this seems a whole lot like what happened in 2008 with the economic stimulus in the past. So what's the difference between 2008 and what we're experiencing now in 2020 as it relates to this COVID-19 stimulus package?
So in 2008, as you know, we had a financial crisis. Around that time, we had a financial crisis. So in a financial crisis, the idea is that the demand is slumped. So they're trying to boost the economy. They're trying to increase demand by helping out and stimulating the economy back. So the word stimulus there actually is literally that. They're stimulating the demand of the economy back. and they're trying to spur economic spending and trying to get households and businesses to, keep hiring, as well as to keep demanding products for both, for individuals to go buy it and for businesses to produce it. So that's really economic stimulus in 2008. In a different situation now. The economy was not, before this, it was not in a bad situation. We were actually doing well. So this is more to stabilize the economy because of the suddenness of it, if anything. And mostly it's not the demand that was slumping at this point. So it's mostly here, it is more for economic security. So this is mostly, as I said, that it's more social insurance. It's to keep the economy stable, and so that we kind of keep running the economy as normal till we get through this, and hopefully be on the better side of things as we go forward. I'm going to, while you're doing questions, I'm going to leave you with these last slide with all the different websites that you might be able to access. And all of them are tied to many of the discussion points that we had.
Yeah, let me kind of add on that. So this first one is the one at the irs.gov site. So if you go on to that, that's where you can actually click on there and be able to check, where's my stimulus payment? Where's it going? How do I key in my bank account information? If I haven't done that, that's all on this first site. The second one is kind of nice, is what is the US government doing? And so it summarizes all the different areas. So if we didn't touch on an area that you're really curious about on this, go to that site, and it really tells you and summarizes everything, gives you links to all of the different areas. And then these last two really are for the small business side. And again, it gives you where the SBA.gov information. And then again, this last site is going to give you, if I'm an individual, if I'm a small business, a large business, what is out there to help me. And so these are just really good sites to at least be your start of where to go.
Oh, wonderful. That actually answered one of the questions that we had. Where can I go to find some resources? So I'm so glad you put that on the screen. We do have a few questions. So the first question, and I'm going to direct this one to you, Dean Petherbridge, just because you talked about this a little bit earlier, is do we have to pay this stimulus back, or can this be taxed, and will it be reflected on our taxes next year?
It is not. It is just like we've gotten stimulus checks in the past. It's amount of money that the government is just giving us back. And so that's the beauty of it, is we do not. Now, some people have asked now to understand, if you owe back taxes, are they going to keep it? And the answer is no. The only time they'll keep it is if you owe child support or those other type of liens that are not IRS related. But if you have an IRS, lien from a past amount, you will still get your stimulus check, which is very different than we've done in the past.
So the next question, and either one of you can take this one, deals a lot about how the CARES Act affects college students. So two questions. One, why aren't college students that are dependents getting checks from the stimulus package? And the next person says, my parents haven't filed their taxes yet. If they claim me as a dependent, I won't get a check. But if they don't claim me as a dependent, will I get a check?
Okay, this is mine. So I always enjoy this with college students, because they'll always say, but I'm working full-time. My parents don't help me at all. Why are they claiming me? Under the statute, so when you actually file your tax return, if you were 24 age or under and you're a full-time student for 5 months of the year, your parents have the right to claim you. Yes. So it's not a thing of, if they don't claim me, I get this. The reality is if you're a full-time student and you're under the age of 24, they are to claim you. And so it is, you are their dependent, and so you would not qualify. They will get the check, but that's just the reality of it. Now, it's just, and that's always been, in this plan, they did not specify, if you are a dependent, you cannot get a check. And so that is one of those areas that you are excluded.
I know,
so
my daughter herself was upset about it. my daughter asked me the same question because she's a college student and she worked. And she's like, can I get a check? I said, no. She said, but I filed returns. I said, it doesn't matter. You're not getting a check. So
yeah, and
it's not built into the package this go around.
And so many feel like, well, if I don't have them claim me, it's not a decision that they make. It's actually, you follow the guideline. Are you a dependent or not by the rules, by the tax code? And the reality is most college students, if you're under the age of 24, you are a dependent of your parents by definition.
This next question, Dr. V, I'm going to toss this one to you.
Okay.
How will this stimulus package, in your estimation, affect the economy in the future? So long-term visual of how this will affect the economy.
Okay, sure. So firstly, I mean, like everyone else, I'm going to say that, I'm going to take this disclaimer thing where Mercer University is not responsible. This is me. This is my opinion.
Okay.
So, but to be honest, I don't think anybody completely knows the answer as to what the long-term impact will be. But I am an optimist always. So I think about it, this is a pandemic, which, unlike the 2008, which is a financial crisis, which also lasted only for a short period of time, to be very honest. But the pandemic is something which is an unknown at this point. So no one knows how long it's going to take us to get the vaccine and for us to get over this whole crisis. So the estimate is right now about 12 months. So if you think about that, we probably, all of us, will go through some pain for the next 12 months. And we might feel the pinch in different ways, some harder than others, but we will probably go through some difficulty in the next 12 months. But by that time, the healthcare sector and the government in general on the other side is working really hard to get us and keep us stable. So my thing in the long term, I think that once we get through this 12-month period, we will get over this thing because the economy was doing fine, and we'll probably go back. And I mean, what we call in economics a V curve. So we're going to go down for a while for the next 12 months, and then we're going to rise right back up. So it's going to be literally like a V for us. So where I think that we're going to go back up, and then we're going to stabilize. It's going to take us a year to get to that point, but I don't think in the long term we'll have that much, and we'll be better prepared. So I think that we'll actually come out of it not only as better human beings, having been through a lot of this pain, but also as, we'll probably be a better prepared nation overall, and probably a better prepared world overall, where we are trying to figure out, saying, how do we get through this, and that we actually survive this. And I think in the long run, we will be fine. So it'll probably be 1 year of difficult times for everyone. And
I appreciate that.
I think all the companies that have, kind of frozen hiring, think about it, in 1 year, they've frozen all their hiring, but once they come back to it, the next year, 2020, 2021, 22 will probably be a great year.
That's wonderful. I love that. Folks, we got one more question about university students again. So are universities going to continue to do online learning, and how will that affect the bottom line of universities, and will they get more stimulus from it?
The stimulus is not directed at the university for that reason. The university is really more geared to if you have students that have need. So the universities that have Pell Grant or students that have financial need, they have a better opportunity to get more resources. We don't know what the next plan will come out with. I mean, the next chunk of money that they might issue may go more towards the universities. Now, I can tell you, being on the side of, leading the School of Business, it's a challenge for us right now. Do we stay online for summer? When is it going to turn on where we can start going to classrooms? And so that is still up for debate. I do think, I'm an optimistic in this. I do see us all being together by August, with no doubt we might be wearing masks, but I think we'll be together, And so, because I don't think, at the university level, it's one thing, but at the elementary school level, it's really a lost year. And so, once we open up, you know, those public elementary schools, the universities in a different, I mean, you know, university students can wash their hands and, you know, stay away from each other. And they can get through, where these elementary schools, it's just, they're calling it a lost year. And faculty are having to adjust, you know, those elementary school teachers are who I just, you know, pray for next year, because it's going to be a hard year, because they're going to have to make up a year and a half of school in a year instead. So I think at the university level, I think you guys are going to see some, you know, by the end of the summer, I think we're going to be more to normal. At least, I mean, I do see we may be a little different normal. We lay out different in classrooms. I mean, there may be things from the social distance that we do differently. Club events might have to be run differently, but I think we're going to be functioning more normal and be back on campus. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I really, everything I've read and everything I've seen, I think we'll be back.
Yeah, I think in fact, the school systems we're talking about yesterday that I was listening to the news, they're thinking about going back in fall and probably do a shift system where they may have a morning for, you know, the middle schoolers and or even different grades, and they may have afternoons. So they may have to play around with that. And so we will probably also have to do a little bit of hybrid, or, you know, we'll probably be full in the classroom. You know, we are preparing for all of the options, all of them out.
I've got just one more question. I've got to ask this because this is coming from a student here at the university, and they say, I'm graduating in May. What would you recommend for me to cultivate and acquire the skills necessary to operate in this new normal?
So I'm going to say, being selfish, I don't know if you're a business school student, but we're actually going to be launching an online professional development 5-week course that's going to start the week after finals, just to kind of guide you guys through this new normal while we're still probably going to be quarantined. And some of you, those job opportunities you thought you had disappeared, or, you know, they're not going to start early. So we're actually providing professional development opportunity for every student, and especially those graduating seniors. So be on the lookout for that. And if you're not in the School of Business, send me an email and I will definitely get you involved in that. And we've been working on it for a couple weeks. We're almost ready to launch it. But again, it's going to launch the week after finals. We're going to give you a week off, and then we're going to make you start working again.
Love it. Now, how do we contact you all if we want to find out a little bit more, either about the stimulus package or about any other relevant topics?
Again, send us emails. And, you know, we're on the university website. It's easy to find us. If you go to the School of Business site, both of us as interim dean and associate dean, we're right on that front page.
That is wonderful. Well, deans, I can't thank you enough for spending your time with us and sharing a little bit about the COVID-19 stimulus package. I have learned so much, and I can tell our audience has learned so much by the questions that we've received and the answers that you all have given. Folks, thank you for joining us in this Mercer University Professional Development Series. I want you to stay tuned. We have got a lot more coming for you. So check your emails regularly. Go to the den.mercer.edu to find out more about this professional development series. Look at the university calendar, and we will see you very soon. Thank you for joining us. Thank you again, Dean Petherbridge. Thank you very much, Dr. V, for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. And we can't wait to see you folks again soon.
Thank
have
you.
a great
Thank
afternoon.
you so
Thank
much.
you. Stay safe.
All right. Have a good day.
Stay safe. So, bye.